The topic of my project is the Jackson Hole Ski Resort and the integral Teton Village located adjacent to the resort. Found in the northwest corner of the state, approximately 12 miles from the town of Jackson Hole, the resort is blanketed by the majestic Teton Mountains and revels in its ties to the Old West. The resort has gained its notoriety for its combination of natural beauty and terrain, on top of the technological advances it has made in skiing. The resort is massive. It is 2,500 acres of skiable area that is monitored by its 800 on-mountain staff. But as will later be discussed, in 1999, the resort gained permission to allow skiers to begin to access the surrounding backcountry terrain, which expanded its total skiable acreage to 3,000 plus. Using an algorithm which rates resorts based on snowfall, terrain, and professional reviews, Jackson Hole was rated the number one ski resort by Forbes' 2016 review. Jackson Hole Ski Resort is a fairly complex physical system that contains within it the subclasses of non-living, living, man-made, and natural. The physical geological structure of the mountain composes the primary non-living component of the system. Living components in the system include the humans which both work and use the system for entertainment, in addition to the wildlife that also calls the mountain home. The system also contains man-made components in the form of skiing infrastructure. One of the most prominent of these man-made components is the aerial tram nicknamed the Red Heli. Natural components of the system include the flora and trees dispersed on the mountain. I have defined the system boundary as the physical area which contains Jackson Hole Resort and Teton Village. Teton Village is a group of businesses and private residences which cater to the customers of the Jackson Hole Ski Resort. The primary inputs of the system are people, in the form of visitors and workers, weather, mostly in the form of snow, and this should be noted as an essential element to the system. Finally, provisions, being food, sundry, and mercantile supplies. Within the system boundaries, I've identified 3 requirements that the resort performs to stay successful. The main attraction / requirement is entertainment. This comes primarily in the form of skiing, but because of the operational risks faced by ski resorts due to their dependency on weather, Jackson Hole offers other forms of entertainment which are less dependent on snowfall. It hosts live music, lifestyle festivals, and of course provides shopping opportunities. To support the primary requirement of the resort, 2 other categories, namely eating and sleeping, must be provided. Jackson Hole Resort and Teton Village do this by providing a variety of options in both categories. Sleeping arrangements vary from the most expensive options of renting private ski chalets for the weekend to the cheapest accommodation of staying in a European-style hostel. Food also offers a high level of variety. Resort patrons can choose from spending a lot on dining at upscale mountaintop restaurants or save some money by eating at the local Mangy Moose pub in Teton Village. These activities within the system produce outputs in the form of waste, revenue, and departing skiers. Internal feedback is provided by managerial evaluations of their subordinates' work, while external feedback comes in the form of customer reviews or evaluations by groups such as Forbes magazine. The majority of visitors go to Jackson Hole Resort during the winter for skiing. Therefore, it makes sense that the resort receives snow before it gets any visitors. Once at the resort, visitors have the option of partaking in the various activities at the resort, such as skiing, shopping, and dining. Completing any of these activities will eventually lead to a person to become tired and require sleep. This is the reason why all of them flow to sleeping accommodations in the way they do. As I previously mentioned, the area offers multiple options for sleeping, but all these options have in common that the vast majority of customers will eventually depart from their sleeping accommodations and leave the Jackson Hole Resort area. Spatial arrangement. A good way to begin to understand the complexity of the Jackson Hole Resort is by breaking down its components in the form of a spatial arrangement. The resort, along with Teton Village, compose the metasystem. Within this metasystem are the three primary system functions I previously mentioned: sleeping accommodations, skiing, and dining. Each of these systems offer a variety of options. Like dining, for example, has both on and off mountain options. Within each of these subsystems are individual cafes or restaurants like the Mangy Moose, which are elements. Structure and visibility. The primary elements of the system are man-made infrastructure, visitors, weather, and workers. The relationship between these elements are in some ways pretty straightforward. That is, if there is more snow, then there will likely be more visitors. But the reason why the overall visibility of the resort is gray is because the exact rate at which snowfall brings visitors is unknown. The same can be said about infrastructure and workers. Yes, workers are needed to operate the infrastructure, but how the building of a new hotel affects the lift operator chair at Station 11 is not easily perceivable. Evolution of Jackson Hole Ski Resort. Jackson Hole Ski Resort occupies an area that was once entirely devoted to agriculture. In 1963, original owner Paul McAllister began construction of the resort. The centerpiece of the resort, even at that time, was the aerial tram. As the years progressed, the technology found at the resort failed to change much until the Kammermer family purchased the resort in 1992. The resort then underwent a revitalization that included the building of a bigger and faster ski lift, like the 8-passenger Brigder's gondola. In 2000, the system evolved again when it went from being a one-dimensional area focused on skiing to a more comprehensive and cohesive resort experience. It did this by recruiting investors to build hotels like the Four Seasons Resort, spas, and create other off-mountain attractions like live music. The most recent evolution of the system is its transformation from a mountain dedicated to advanced skiers to one that is more family-friendly. It has accomplished this by installing a new chairlift which provides access to more intermediate terrain, along with offering more groomed trails. At its initiation, original owner Paul McAllister, along with other members of the Jackson Hole Ski Club, identified the desire to build a ski resort in the surrounding Teton mountain range. At this stage, the system faced technical risk because it was the first of its kind in the region, so little was known about how the area would receive such a system. The stakeholder that bore the most risk at this moment would be the decision authority in the form of the government, who would have to bless off any development of the land. Planning consisted of McAllister personally skiing any of the slopes in the area to determine which would be the best for a ski resort. Again, there is a technical risk in this, since it was unknown if a mountain would even meet the criteria for being a skiable mountain for the public. Stakeholders with the most risk at this point would be the client, McAllister, since if his plans fell through, he would be unable to make the millions that he desired. Development began with the actual building of the infrastructure to include the aerial tram. I will further explain the system's life cycle by using the aerial tram as an example of how the system's infrastructure progressed over time. The risk faced at this stage is cost. Since the process was novel, it was unknown exactly how much the project would end up costing. The stakeholder most on the line would be the client, Mr. McAllister. Implementation and testing of the system could begin once the infrastructure was complete. This brought with it pragmatic risk, since although the infrastructure might be good, if there were a condition where no customers showed up, the system fails. A stakeholder at this stage would be the user, that is, the one who operates the tram. Operation and maintenance. The original aerial tram ran for close to 40 years. During this time, the greatest risk it faced was operational risk. That is, it was having to be maintained adequately. A stakeholder of the system at this time would be the consumer, which are the skiers riding the lift. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and have come to understand why the Jackson Hole Ski Resort has had so much success over its 50 years in existence.